Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. In about an hour from now, the province, along with Surrey Schools, will make an announcement around infrastructure. And this in a district where student population is far outpacing school space. So much so that this September, Surrey Schools will turn to hybrid learning to offset crowded classrooms. We'll talk to the Surrey Parents and Teachers Association. And at 12:30, we'll hear from an expert on technology and education about what works and what doesn't. And we're asking you, what do you think of hybrid learning? How would your child do? Taking your calls this hour. Welcome to BC Today. Thanks for joining us on CBC Radio, CBC Television, live streaming as well on YouTube and on TikTok. And you can call us now. What do you think of hybrid learning? How do you think your child would do with more online learning in their education? And this pilot program would focus on grades 10 to 12 specifically. And what do you think of hybrid learning as an option, a solution to overcrowded schools in BC? You can call us now. Our numbers are 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950, or just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can email us, bctoday@cbc.ca, and you can just leave a comment on our TikTok Live. Yes, back to school season is quickly approaching, just in 1 week, in fact, and it may look different for some students in the Surrey School District. So for students in grades 10 to 12, the district is offering a hybrid online and in-person learning model as a way to combat overcrowding. And the pilot project was approved last December. The school district houses 83,000 students, and enrollment numbers outpace the amount of classroom space. So we're asking you, what do you think of hybrid learning? How would your own child do with more online learning in the curriculum? And what do you think can be done about overcrowding in BC schools? You can call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Leave a comment on our TikTok Live, or you can email us to bctoday@cbc.ca. I have two guests with me to start with, Violette Baillargeon and Anne Whitmore. Violette is the second vice president of the Surrey Teachers Association, and Anne is the president of the Surrey District Parent Advisory Council. So we're talking to teachers and parents right now. Thanks so much for joining us, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Violette, I'll go to you first as a teacher in Surrey. What have you heard about this hybrid learning program or hybrid model this coming school year?
Yeah, thank you. So what we've heard is that it's a pilot program. So it's being done in Surrey first before it's implemented anywhere else. It's a response mostly to overcrowding. It's the fact that we don't have enough classrooms and our schools are not large enough to accommodate the number of students that are registering every September and earlier in Surrey. It's meant to be a hybrid. What it means in the classroom for people who are listening is the idea that we'd be meeting our students sometimes in person and then sometimes online. So that would either look like us giving a lesson and students would be either in their homes or in the school somewhere following along, or we could pre-register a lesson or pre-register materials ahead of time so that they could look at it after the fact. So the intention right now is to have 3 sections of a course. So say we have a course in, for example, I teach French and Spanish. So I have a number of section of Spanish, 9, say. So 3 of those sections would be offered hybrid. And what we've been told by the district is that there would be about 100 sections district-wide being offered hybrid.
Okay. What's been the reaction from your members?
Well, it's mixed. It's definitely mixed. There's a lot of trepidation. Of course, it has the possible consequence of doubling teachers' work. First of all, is that we do so much planning for in-person work, but then if we're supposed to also be planning for outside of school, and then also we have to assess all of the work that we ask our students to turn in, right? So in order to ensure that the students are actually following along when they're online, we need to get them to submit work. We need to look at that work and give meaningful feedback. So we're concerned around the supports for our members, but also supports for students, because we have a number of vulnerable students, especially post-pandemic. We know that being online can also decrease meaningful engagement. We know that students learn best when there's a relationship built and they're right in front of you and they can speak and hear and ask questions and engage.
Okay, and so Anne, as a parent, what are your thoughts on that then?
I think when we first heard that hybrid was coming, a lot of families had that reaction from the pandemic where we had kind of small T trauma, where everybody was scrambling. Educators are trying to figure out the technology, how to translate learning into an online environment with students. And I happened to have a kindergartner and a third grader, and that was really not fun. What I understand about how this is rolling out is this is not going to be the same thing at all. First of all, most educators now have gone through that experience, and there's been a lot of shared learning that's come out of it. And then the other thing is that, as Violette said, this is not purely online. So there is an in-person component, so students are able to connect with their teacher, they're able to connect with each other, and then there might be a mix of asynchronous or via some online platform learning as well.
I just want to jump in with the term asynchronous. I've heard that today as well, speaking to an expert whom we're about to hear from in about 20 minutes from now. But perhaps you can just explain what that means when it comes to what the learning environment looks like.
Sure. So asynchronous would mean like not at the same time, where synchronous would be at the same time. So in some learning platforms, a teacher might give an assignment, and then the student fills out their Word document, the report, and then they send it back to the teacher, or they might be working on a group project offline and then come back. So it's not everybody doing the classwork at the same time.
Right. Almost like a correspondence course, as I used to remember them.
Yeah. I did Spanish. I was laughing about the Spanish because I did Spanish by correspondence, and it was not
Oh my
easy to do it
goodness.
that way. Yeah, so this is definitely different, and I think the benefit is that you would have your teacher that you are attached to, and that's responsible for your learning and your success.
Okay, let's take some calls now, asking you, what do you think of hybrid learning and how it's going to look in the Surrey School District as they start this pilot program starting next week as the school year gets going. How do you think your child would do with more online learning? And what do you think of this as a potential solution for other districts that are dealing with overcrowding in schools? As you heard, Surrey is the first to do this. Should others try it out, give us a call, 604-669-3733 or 1-800-825-5950. You can also hit pound 690 on your phone. Email is bctoday@cbc.ca. I'd love to hear from you if you're watching us on TikTok. In fact, lots of comments now. Maria writes, great solution and preparation for higher education. And Islander writes, funding for education should be bound to the pupils directly to incentivize private competition, in my opinion. Islander, thank you very much. Islander likes to join us on TikTok. Nice to have you with us again. My guest I'm pleased to have here on the show, Violette Baillargeon, is with the Surrey Teachers Association, and Anne Whitmore is with the Surrey Parents District Advisory Council. Lana is calling us now from Nanaimo. Hi, Lana. Welcome to the show. What do you think of this hybrid learning platform?
Hi, thanks for having me. I think it's absolutely horrible having a daughter that actually has gone through this. I know that there is always supposed to be somebody reaching out, et cetera, to help facilitate the programming, but that didn't seem the way, and my daughter would just get distracted and push the work aside, and it didn't get done. So,
when was this, Lana? Was it during the pandemic?
She actually was doing alternative schooling 3 years ago after the pandemic. And then she ended up going to a in-person alt school where they had a lot of one-on-one and classroom settings, but her learning increased substantially having actual interaction with people. And I think that's one thing that we're kind of trying to push aside right now that the kids really need.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Lana. Thank you very much for that. The supports were supposed to be there, Violette, but it sounds like they weren't, and you expressed that concern as well. Since this was approved in December, what have you heard, or what kind of preparation have teachers had in terms of increasing that support or ensuring that it is there?
Yeah, unfortunately, not any. In part because we've been, of course, since December, teachers were with their current classes and they were meeting with their current classes and students every day. So there was no time to really interrupt that and start talking about or start training teachers and what it would look like. So it was really something that we were notified by our school administrators when we were in school last spring. And then so we knew it was there. The way it's being rolled out is that teachers have an opportunity to sign up for it. So it's voluntary. So they do have an opportunity. And also what we've been communicated with us is that students also have an opportunity to sign up with it if they're interested in it.
Right.
Our concerns, just as our caller just alluded to, is that if you've ever spent any time around a teenager, you know that they're not exactly self-motivated learners. So we need to bring them on. We need to really engage them. We need to give them reasons why to come and to be there and to really participate. And teachers have found a number of innovative and wonderful ways of doing that with teenagers, and that's building a relationship, seeing them in person. Sometimes the way that you can determine whether a teenager is, or a small child, but we're talking about hybrid program in older grades, to see if they're struggling at home, is to get a visual of them and to, sit with them quietly, sit with them in the classroom, not disturb them for a bit, and then eventually kind of make your way over and see how they're doing. So the concern around not having them in front of us is definitely a real one. And thank you for highlighting that, caller. And that's something that teachers have to struggle with all the time. If it was just downloaded curriculum onto students and they were passive and engaged and happy and wanting to receive that, that would be quite a different task than what we actually have, is we have a number of students who don't want to be there.
And Anne, so what kinds of supports would you like to see then for students?
I think what needs to happen is that it's equitable access. And so, I can share, I have a student with multiple disabilities as a child of mine. And so for us, the pandemic school was a great opportunity for her because I could sit next to her off screen, support her one-on-one, really give her assistance in scribing and supporting her in engaging with her class. But it required me to be outside of my work and my other obligations, and not everybody can do that. And so, I think it's tricky. Right now, it's optional. I don't know what will be available to students, as we are already facing an attrition policy with regards to educational assistance. That means that I believe it's over 50 full-time positions, which translates to more people because none of our EAs are full-time, are actually not going to be replaced should they quit or retire this coming school year. And so the question to the caller's point about student support is absolutely critical. For some students, they thrive in this environment. They're in their home environment, they're in their comfy clothes, they're in their safe space. It allows their brain to relax and to be engaged in the learning and to do it sometimes at their own pace. For other students, it's absolutely critical that they have a person to co-regulate with, that they're connected to their teacher, that they are engaged in the learning, and that they're drawn along and inspired in that way. And so absolutely support is critical.
Chris is our next caller in Burnaby. What are your thoughts on hybrid learning, Chris?
Having experienced that for over 2 years with one of my kids, I don't recommend it. They end up being online way too much, way beyond any recommended maximums for online time. Like, the policies seem to be developing with no regard whatsoever for what's best for kids' well-being. And when a kid is on the computer working or doing something, you actually don't know what they're doing on the computer unless you're sitting right beside them. So they might be, watching videos, might be playing games, they might be doing who knows what. They might be doing their work, who knows. They're just online and you can't tell unless you sit right beside them. We want to solve these problems about the space and all that. Like one option that needs to be looked into is just having an equal access, like having an option where the family gets the funding and they can hire tutors or take courses as they see fit, and it's not dependent on having a space in a bricks and mortar school.
Yeah, and certainly an issue in Burnaby as well with the growing student population there. Thanks for the call from Burnaby, Chris. Lots of comments on TikTok and email too. Bryce writes, it's not black or white. It will work for some students and for others, it won't. And the heart symbol, as a TikTok user writes, online, good decision for people who need it as an accessibility issue, but otherwise I choose in person. The burden will be put on the teacher the most, as most ended up working overtime during online. Mina writes on email, we are all online too much. We need more nature and to meet with real people, Indigenous elders, and stories. Thank you very much. Let's go to another caller now. And Zane in Kelowna. Welcome. What are your thoughts on hybrid learning?
Hello. Actually, I'm from Lumbee, but I have a degree in social work, so I've worked a lot with youth, in particular First Nations youth. So a lot of these schools are on the Celix territory, and we're definitely not following the medicine wheel teaching when we're doing online learning. Also, with the growth of youth with ADD, I don't know how motivated kids will be doing work alone at home. However, I do see the advantage maybe in grade 12 to take some online courses, just because if you're going to college or university, you're going to be doing a lot of things on the computer out of class. But I do think, if we're looking at the biopsychosocial, a lot of the things are to do with their fellow students, like sports, like getting exercise, like growing together, right? So there's definitely a need to be in person at school.
That social interaction. Zane, thank you for the call. Raising the point as well about students with ADHD, and I wonder how individual education plans would be incorporated into this hybrid learning. Let me ask you, and the press release from Surrey Schools, when they announced that this was happening, the trustee, Bob Holmes, said there are opportunities here, but the motivation is once again because we have a capital crunch in this district. And he said we need more schools. So is this really addressing that issue?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, pardon me. I'm going to go to Anne first and then you, Violette.
Okay.
My apologies.
Yeah, no problem.
I think we're on the same page here, in part, in one sense, because yes, maybe a class might be 2 days in person and the rest asynchronous or online. And I know there are a lot of callers saying, this is horrible. Remember, this is one class that a student might be signing up for that's hybrid. The rest of their courses would likely be in person. So this is not a full hybrid option of education. If you want that, for people that aligns with, us going with some of our distributed learning programs in the province would probably be a good option for them. But this is definitely because of space. I know I've spoken with our superintendent, and he believes that this is a great preparation for students, both for university courses as well as for the workforce. I myself work hybrid, primarily online. And so, developing that discipline, developing the way, learning to read each other, building connection, and also doing a way of doing our work. But the students might not go home. So, we've asked, what if students don't have time to go home because they have another block coming up right after that? Or what if they don't have the equipment at home to do it? So they might actually be staying on property. And so it doesn't actually reduce the number of students at the school property necessarily. And keep in mind, this is because we have not had the proper capacity in Surrey and across this province for students. We have almost 16 schools worth of students doing school in portables in Surrey. So the amount of investment that needs to happen in order to just catch up with growth in Surrey is massive. I believe the latest request was $5 billion, and that's for Surrey. So it's not an ideal situation. I think to their credit, the district is trying to get creative and do the best that they can. Okay. And so we have extended day, which adds another block.
Right.
And we have...
I'm going to jump in here because we're coming up against a TV ad break. But Violette, yes, what are your thoughts? How far does this go to address the overcrowding situation?
Yeah, thank you. Well, Anne's absolutely right. That's the issue, is that the district has actually said, the students can stay on site to participate in their class, but then we think, then where are we going to put them? We don't have empty classrooms where we can put students. We already have a number of students in the hallways that are not supposed to be in the hallways, so we don't want to put more students in the hallways. Our library, our learning commons are used continuously also. So if we are not facilitating them staying at school, then we're sending them home. And that brings up again what Anne was referring to earlier, is the issue of equity. We have very few families in Surrey where there is a computer that can be used in the home. Everybody is really working off of their phones.
Okay.
Maybe people have a computer at work, but they certainly don't have homes where they have a computer that the child can access. So of course that widens the inequity that we see already.
Access to that as well. Great to have you both. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Violette Baillargeon is the second vice president of the Surrey Teachers Association. Anne Whitmore is president of the Surrey District Parent Advisory Council. More on this now, of course, in our next half hour. We're going to continue to take your calls, asking you what you think of hybrid learning. It's going to be a pilot project at the Surrey School District for some students who opt in from grades 10 to 12. We're going to hear from a technology and education expert at UVic. Lots of comments coming in too on TikTok. Pav writes, it didn't work during the pandemic. I'm a teacher. And Rizzy Rez Cat writes, online learning is safer and you get to teach your children. Jeff O writes, I went to Kwantlen and graduated in 2015. The high school system back then was overcrowded. I can only imagine how much worse it's gotten. They've built all the high schools in Surrey and didn't add any expansion for decades. This is a Surrey School District issue. Deferred expansion will affect education. I feel terrible for the younger generation in high schools within School District 36. It is the most overcrowded and the most underfunded district in BC. On email, Tara writes, there's so much more to school than academics. Kids need safe and supportive relationships with peers and staff, and you can't do that online. As someone whose kids have gone without adequate education supports for over a decade, I feel this is a complete cop-out by the school district. We need more in-person supports, more education assistance, lower class sizes, more resources for teachers, etc. We need to make our in-person learning environments safer and more inclusive, not funnel all our vulnerable learners to an online model. Thank you very much. And just to note again that this is going to be an opt-in, optional program, hybrid model for grades 10 to 12 students. So there is that too. Thanks very much for all of your emails. bctoday@cbc.ca. If you're watching us on TikTok, leave your comment there too, and more of your calls in our next half hour. Right now, though, it is 12:30 and time for a CBC News Update as you're with BC Today here on CBC Radio 1, CBC Television, live streaming as well. And with that CBC News Update, here's Amelia John.
Good afternoon. Police on Vancouver Island say speed was a factor in a crash that killed a 12-year-old who was rollerblading with family members. RCMP say it happened along Hillbank Road north of Shawnigan Lake at about 8:30 last night. They say the boy was rollerblading when the driver of a Honda Civic lost control and struck the boy before hitting a telephone pole. The number of wildfires across BC has held steady at about 70. BC Wildfire Service figures show 7 fires are classified as burning out of control, including the Sailor Bar fire in the Fraser Canyon. Evacuation alerts for the Yale and Spuzzum areas remain in effect. And the daytime high was 41.3 degrees Celsius in Lytton yesterday, making it the hottest temperature recorded across the country so far this year. Lytton was among 16 areas of BC that set new daily maximum records for the same day. Environment Canada says the heat is expected to ease on Friday. And for a closer look at that BC forecast, lots of sunshine continuing across the province today. Heat warnings in effect for the north and central coast, South Thompson, South Okanagan, Fraser Canyon. Special weather statements for above seasonal temperatures have been issued for East Vancouver Island and inland Vancouver Island. Along the north coast, high of 17 degrees. In the Peace, high of 31. For the central interior, 29 degrees. For the southeast, highs to 35. For the southern interior, highs to 35 as well. And along the south coast today, highs up to 30 degrees. And that is the CBC News from Vancouver.
Of course, big news in the celebrity engagement world. Very niche.
Everybody's talking about it.
If you thought you could make it through the hour without a mention,
No chance.
no. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce. Yeah.
Engaged. They just announced it. And oh my goodness, within like 20 minutes, millions and millions of likes
Fire.
on their Instagram.
Yeah.
So what is it? What do we call them? Is it Tay and Trey? Is there a portmanteau?
We're gonna get letters from the Swifties, Michelle.
Trav?
I believe it's. I don't know.
Don't come at me.
Apologies to the
I
Swifties.
do not have a Twitter account. No. But it is, I mean, it's kind of going to be like a royal wedding, I guess.
Totally.
They are just that famous.
Yeah, they made this announcement on social media. Beautiful garden, flowers
Yes.
everywhere, and then this massive rock of a ring. Huge diamond. Gold ring.
We're showing a photo of it right now. I mean, Taylor Swift's marketing strategy will be dissected for decades to come,
Absolutely.
I think. Go get that album, I think is what.
Good timing, right?
Yes, but that's happy for them. But yeah, this is all, of course, when you're in the public eye, everything is kind of public fodder, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, what's next? Super Bowl, do you think? I don't know. It just keeps coming. You can't escape it.
Wait and see.
Wait and see. That's for your next news update. Amelia, thank you very much.
Thanks, Michelle.
That's Amelia John in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Welcome back. You're with BC Today here on CBC. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks so much for being with us. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. I hope you're having a good day today. We are continuing our discussion into hybrid learning as Surrey schools are set to begin a pilot project this September. They're going to offer some courses to grades 10 to 12 students that would rotate between online and in-person. And the program was approved last December by the Surrey School Board. And in that press release last December, school trustee Bob Holmes said this offers opportunities for some students, but that the motivation, he said, was a capital crunch in the district. Okay, we're asking you, what do you think of hybrid learning? How would your own child do in a mix of online and in-person learning? And what do you think of this as a solution to overcrowding in some BC school districts? You can give us a call. Just hit pound 690 on your cell phone, or you can dial 1-800-825-5950 or 604-669-3733. Our email is bctoday@cbc.ca, and really enjoying hearing your comments on TikTok as well. Mehdi writes, in Europe, it alternates between times, morning and afternoon. Canada can do it too. And this has to do with, I think, staggered times is what Mehdi is referring to. That is part of what Surrey is thinking about as well. And I think they tried it last year in terms of different schedules. Annie writes, yes, and we need more EAs. Leanna writes, maybe the schools could go to a year-round model. And Catherine sent us an email. The hybrid learning initiative is being considered because of the lack of something else, not as an option that's good for kids. Independent learning should only be an option for self-starting kids who are studious, disciplined, and socially sound. Thanks very much for all of your comments. Keep them coming. TikTok and email. I'd love to hear from you on the phone lines as well. My guest for this portion of the discussion is Valerie Irvine, professor of educational technology at the University of Victoria, who studied online learning for many years now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on today. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. You've been looking at the various ways to mix online and in-person learning for many years. And so overall, what do you think of it?
I think it's a great step. I think one thing I like to tell folks, everyone brings what I call a modality bias to the conversation. An experience they had face-to-face that wasn't great, they generalized to a whole school or a program. Same thing with online that happens. It is not the same everywhere. And anytime you choose a modality, in general, you're marginalizing a learner.
So some things work for others and some things work for some, but not others, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think getting out of the position of making sweeping generalized statements about what is good for all, we can't do that. We know that for accessibility, we need to have belonging and inclusion. And I'm really happy to see some online coming into the brick and mortar catchment schools, because 11% of our learners in BC are in the K-12 online school system. So not in the brick and mortar. And that's about 75,000 students. When a student leaves a catchment school because of any issues they have, or medical issues or mental health issues, they are now leaving their community school, their belonging, yet they might still reside in the neighborhood. And I think that may not be something they chose to do, but they were forced to do, to go online. And it tends to be asynchronous only in a lot of these, and content oriented, even with content being bought by companies in Texas for the shell of the online course. So getting to more relational and connecting to brick and mortar schools, I think, is a great thing. It connects learners to the school still. And it said for some students is optional, and for some students. So that this isn't something being forced on everybody. And I'm sure it's probably going to be sought after by the learners who need some of that flexibility.
You raise an interesting point in that comparing it to the current way that online education is delivered, you said for 11% of the K-12 students, they're kind of almost in a separate district, aren't they? They're taking these online courses, but they're not attached to their local district, whereas in Surrey's case, they would be attached, still belong to that school, but taking some courses that online via that school.
Yeah, so some districts have an online school within it, but the student may be severing themselves from a school to go participate in the online school in district. There are some provincial online schools, so they leave the district entirely. And I know, from talking and knowing these students, they can even, if they've left for anxiety reasons, even it could be even worsening that isolation. Maybe the brick and mortar catchment place was not safe for them, and these are not safe schools for everybody, and we have to recognize that's a fact. But then if they leave the school but still live in the neighborhood, it can actually be difficult to walk around the neighborhood thinking, now I left, the school. And I think keeping that connection and trying to keep it positive, relational. I'm hearing a lot of people say that online learning is not relational. Yeah, I would agree with a lot of how it's done in K-12 needs transformation, like badly. It's asynchronous only, start anytime and end anytime type of thing with larger class sizes, less supports. It needs to be improved. So I think starting within a school and working from, and hopefully they're putting the investment in. I think all of us should be okay with any bumps. Anytime you innovate, it's new, and we're practicing new things, finding out what works and doesn't work. So if everyone works from a place of let's share, our experiences, put it all on the table. We're in the design phase, and iterate from there. So like, there's really amazing online courses out there, really
Yeah.
amazing blended and multi-access, courses out there. It gets there through iteration and design.
I can see
So,
though some of those grade 10 to 12 students who do sign up for this, hoping for no hiccups.
yes, but hopefully the district has ensured like an evaluation process around it. I hope there's partnership with like people like us, like, researchers and universities who would be happy to, do action-based research designs and evaluate it throughout it. That's the type of partnership that I hope is happening, or at least some internal mechanism with which they are checking in with everybody,
Right.
so
Yeah.
they can, intervene before a whole course goes by. But, everyone should be like, we have to recognize that by not changing, our educational systems are not in a very good place with where society is going and where learners' needs are. So face to face, we did a survey of post-secondary students, I don't know, a few thousand people. Face to face was only the number one choice of, I think it was like low 50s, 50, I'll say 55 for easy math. But yeah, number one was face to face for that. So I think there was about a third that wanted hybrid, and another third that wanted multi-access. So I think it was, anyway, so it's not, we have to recognize there's a saying that you teach how you were taught. And I think people, have opinions about education based on how they learned, their own school system experiences.
Yeah.
And I think there are learners who would desperately want to have less time in a school if the school is especially not a safe space for some of the students.
Let's take a call here asking you, what do you think of hybrid learning? How would it work for your child, your student? Travis is next now in Courtenay. Hi, Travis. What are your thoughts on this?
Hi, thank you for bringing this up. I really appreciate it. We have a daughter that has been diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and we've been advocating for this type of program for years now, since elementary school. She's now a grade 9 student coming up, and we had to push the school system to provide this for her. We had to do all the research on how to do this. We're doing it now with a program called PI, Partners in Education, and Brielle's also enrolled in regular high school with Isfeld, but we had to do all the research, do everything. We have the IEP for her, and we were constantly told that we can't do, the school system was telling us we can't do this for you. We can't provide any services for you for Brielle's needs in the classroom. And your guest is absolutely right. Like, there's a safety issue there for, especially in places like her PE. She just feels completely uncomfortable, and she's forced in situations that she's just completely uncomfortable with. And we keep having to go in and tell them, like, you guys can't do this. You guys can't force her to do things. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's amazing you had to fight for it. But what now, having gone through what you've gone through, Travis, what are ways to make it work? What have you seen actually makes it beneficial for your daughter?
Oh, Pi's been amazing. Like this hybrid, we made this hybrid option work for us. We went in there and said, because every time they told us we can't do this, the crazy thing is, like, we're not asking them to do anything. We're asking them, can you please be flexible with us? Can you be flexible with the schedule? Because we have found the resources, we're paying for it ourselves, but they don't want to be flexible with the schedules. And it doesn't cost anything to anybody, not the taxpayer, not the school system. All we're asking for is, please be flexible with us, because that's what's needed for these kids with ADHD and autism. For us specifically, we need flexibility. But they were telling us that we can't do that. It's a scheduling conflict. We can't do that with our schedules. But the same breath, they're telling us that they can't help my daughter in school. So we're stuck here, and we're fighting them every step of the way, and wanting, and all this is helping these poor kids in these classrooms, because the school system cannot provide the help that these kids need. it's in other countries do this already. Japan's already doing it. Norway's doing it. There's other countries that do this that are ahead of us. I've read about it. It's successful, and I hope that BC continues with this. I'm proud of Surrey for pushing through and doing this. Like, it's going to help some students immensely.
Travis, really good to hear from you. Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
And I'd
Appreciate
love to,
it.
yeah, really good to hear your story. Our numbers, if you want to weigh in as well, let us know your own experience with hybrid learning. If you're a part of this PI program, Partners in Education, tell us how that's worked for you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Our email again, bctoday@cbc.ca. And on TikTok, just leave your comment if you're watching us there. Susanna writes, who's going to cover the laptops? And valid person writes, bring back online learning. Okay, thank you very much. And so let me go back to my guest here, Valerie Irvine, who's a professor of educational technology at UVic. Who do you think are the students that would benefit from this program? Who do you see signing up for this optional hybrid learning program?
Honestly, number one, I think students with anxiety. I think I was told that 1 in 5, it was a few years back, but I think it was SD61 reported to me that 1 in 5 learners have diagnosed anxiety disorders. And that's just one designation. Even if someone's a very, quiet, tend to be sensitive to sounds or those types of things. Full-time, 5 days a week in the school, that's draining. And so I think having some balance from that sensory overload, or if there's negative social dynamics in the school. One of the things I struggle with is when people say, go into the school and tough it out and then you'll get over anxiety. But sometimes if it's a traumatic place to be, where there's, racializations, sexualized harassment, the unsafe bullying, it's not necessarily great to stay in something that is toxic.
Sure.
And we need more leadership on this. So persons with disabilities, Indigenous peoples, there's a variety of different scenarios going on, even teen parents, or because you want to. Like, I think we have to get to a point of people can have a choice for how it works for them, and who are we to meddle? I think we need to move towards a more flexible design. In the post-secondary system, there was a digital learning advisory committee struck with academics and administrators, leaders from within and beyond BC, and we created a BC digital learning strategy, and that was being socialized. I think there's a need in K-12. It tends to be either or. We're in a binary of online schools or face-to-face,
Right.
and even schools that want to dabble between, they're sort of told to pick a lane. I think that needs to be behind us. And I am happy to hear about the work that's being done and the culture of yes. And that's the name of Chris Kennedy's blog in West Vancouver. He's a superintendent of the West Van School District. And hearing that parent, all the work that he was doing, Travis, I think his name was,
Yes.
to advocate and research and find out. And we shouldn't have to have parents do that. BC Ed Access is a really great association. I think it's bcedaccess.org. Is it .com? I think it's .org. They're a great advocacy group as well for any parents, who need to go and look at how to support their learners, their children. But I think we need to look at applauding where innovation is happening. And this is in the best needs. It might say, well, it's for capital, it's for space. Well, then isn't that a good thing if there isn't proper space? When it's a win-win. I like win-win scenarios because there are learners who will want this and benefit. And then if it lightens up and doesn't overcrowd classrooms at the same time, that's a good thing too.
I did reach out to BC Ed Access this morning. In fact, I haven't heard back yet, but very interested in hearing what they have to say.
Great.
Certainly. Kelsey wrote us, parents should have a say in how their children are educated. In Summerland, there is a hybrid school opening up. I am so grateful. Okay, really interesting to hear about that example in Summerland. Vintage Mama writes, self-motivated learners do well. And Shells 945 writes, as an online learner in college, I prefer it. My grades have never been better. It is less stress. Meanwhile, on email, Catherine wrote us, the hybrid learning initiative is being considered because of the lack of something else. My apologies, I've read that one already. Dawn in Kelowna writes, this is typical of our governments who continue to invite people to come here when we don't have the schools, hospitals, law enforcement, or even the infrastructure to support the growth. All they can think of is growth. Things must be bigger, faster, stronger. Very poor managing of our cities, provinces, and the country as a whole. Our email again, bctoday@cbc.ca. Thanks very much for sending those in. Heidi is our next caller now in Kamloops. Hi, Heidi. What are your thoughts on hybrid learning?
Hi. I think it's doable. There's a school out in Maple Ridge. It's called Thomas Haney Senior Secondary, and it goes from grade 8 to grade 12. You do have to be motivated to be successful. I think they need to have an out for kids that are not motivated and they don't fit into this type of learning, so that they could go to a regular school. But at Thomas Haney, in grade 8, they've got full classes for the first semester, and then they start cutting back on the number of classes they have per subject. By the time you hit grade 12, you have one class per subject per week, and the rest of the time, it's up to you to get your assignments in. You can always approach the teacher. They've got a learning hall where they've got language art teachers, math teachers, science teachers. So there's always someone they can go and ask questions of. And it's a great way to prepare for university or college.
Wow. And this is something, you have a child in this school, I imagine? Or you've heard of it?
She has graduated, and she just flew through university because she was able to manage her time. They do have, at the beginning of each day, they have a homeroom class, and the teacher will go over each kid's, they had like a workbook where you have your goals for the week, and they would go over each day with the kid and make sure that they're up to date, they've got their book, their goals, their subjects. And from there, the kids fly. And I see it as being a really good school. It's not for everybody, though.
Yeah.
Well,
the self-starters, for sure. Heidi, congrats to your child. Thank you very much for the call. Jack is in Fruitvale. Hi, Jack. What are your thoughts on more online learning or hybrid learning?
I liked it. I did it when I was younger. When I was in high school in grade 10, I switched to a distributed learning program, and I did great. I did it in university. It prepared me for it. I don't think I would have been prepared for university going online if I hadn't done that. I understand the argument that you got to be a self-starter and all that, but that's anything in life. There's never really a time where being a self-starter doesn't help you. And at the end of the day, the world is changing, and
technology is part of it for sure.
Yeah. I have an autistic son as well, so I'm thinking about the future for him. I'm thinking the way technology could help him. I'm thinking our school system isn't designed to help people like him. Sure, it wasn't designed to help people like me. So that's my opinion on it. I agree with the whole socialization. I agree with the guy who called in and was talking about sports and extracurriculars, chess club, gardening club, all that. I think that all that's fantastic. But I really, I feel like it can be a little bit of Ludditism that people are going after technology. I also have to wonder with the back to work push, where everyone wants workers back in the office, how much of this is us just pushing students back in the office because there's a bigger, something bigger behind that.
Jack, thank you very much for that. It's that binary, right? To online versus in person. Let me wrap up with you in our last couple of minutes here, Valerie. We heard a lot about there needs to be supports. What kind of supports do you think need to be in place in order to make this a success?
I think onboarding for everybody. There needs to be onboarding for the learners for how to learn online if they haven't before. If it is asynchronous, asynchronous is great. I'm not a huge advocate for 100% asynchronous, which is what I see a lot in the K to 12 online schools. Having that synchronous time online or in person, synchronous meaning live, together
With others, yeah.
with others that you can talk back and forth. But so onboarding the learners for how to, like, again, that motivation self-start type of thing. Activities asynchronous can still be relational. They can still even have decentralized, like synchronous podding of students where they can connect together. Teachers need to be onboarded as well. And so to make sure that they understand how to support good dynamics asynchronously. I would say asynchronous is probably the hardest to teach out of, synchronous versus asynchronous for most people. And then infrastructure wise, unfortunately, like the learning management systems that we have, like whether it's GAFE, Google Apps in schools, or Microsoft, they're very enterprise because they're safe and locked down and all that, but they're not very good online environments for pedagogy. They were created by computer scientists, and others were just put together as productivity tools. There are a lot of other relational software, pieces that can be put together, and so the designs of those, or even data ownership. Does Google now, like, these are American companies, it creates new issues of, and especially for Indigenous learners, like their data now, can they have access, own their data, and where does it go? And do we want to be so reliant on the US? I would love to see more innovation in Canada where we have, our own solutions that are designed in collaboration with educational researchers, not just computer scientists.
Wow.
But so I think the administration, the tech support, the access to tech, those types of things, like, and hopefully they've brought in, expert advisors, stakeholders, to look at from angles, and maybe that it will be done concurrently as well, or at least when it's being offered.
Yeah. It's really good to hear from you on this. It really impacts people from all parts of the province. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Valerie Irvine is a professor at UVic.